Hilchis Chenim Perek Shlishi. Now we learned before that if there's a chutzner, two people have a chutzner next to each other, so they could demand from each other to build a divider in between the two in order to prevent one from being able to see into the other and invade the other person's privacy. And each one could demand from the other to build a fence which would be goveya arba amis in order to prevent hezekriya. Now exactly the width of the the thickness of the fence, that depends on the minig hamokim, like the Rambam said. Masha'inkin, the height of the fence is dalar amis. Now what happens if you have two people that had a fence in between them, which was higher than dalar amis, and now lepel, that fence fell? So even though originally they had a fence which was higher than dalar amis, but nevertheless neither of them could force the other one to rebuild a fence which is higher than dalar amis. And now again they could only force each other to build a fence which is dalar amis tall. That's what we're learning over here. Perek Shlishi. Koisel chotzer hamavdel ben shnei shutfim shenofal. So yesh l'chol echad mishneihem lokev es al chaveri livneisei ad geva arba amis. Each one could force the other one to build it until the height of arba amis, kedei sheliyiru says in order to prevent one being able to see into the other's chotzer. Avol yes al arba amis, but more than arba amis, ein mechayv neisei. The chiddush is that even though originally the wall was higher than 4 amas, but right now that wall fell, and now they're forcing each other to build a wall. One is forcing the other to build a wall, so the obligation to build a wall is only arba amis. That's the number one. Now, Rotzo Echad v'Igbiya Kesel Yesel arba amis. If one of them said, "Good, I could only force you to build a wall of arba amis, but I'll build higher. I want to build my higher." So then that cheshbon is beseder. He could build higher, but it's on his own cheshbon. Now, what happens if the person built a higher wall? In the Bochavere Ubana Kesel Echad Goveya Keneged HaKesel Shebineim. So in other words, there's let's say Reuven and Shimon. Reuven wanted a higher wall. Shimon only wanted a wall of 4 amas. So Reuven, they built a wall till 4 amas together, and then Reuven extended the wall higher, as we'll see the example, till 10 amas. So Reuven paid for those extra 6 amas. Now Shimon goes ahead, after Reuven already built a wall 10 amas tall, and he built another wall, which is opposite that wall, on the other side of his chutzner, which theoretically he'd be able to go ahead and take beams and put them across from this new wall that he built to the original wall, which is between Reuven and Shimon, and thereby use that wall. So Memela, since he's showing that he's nichole, he's appreciating the wall that Reuven built, which was higher, and he's going to have benefit from it. So therefore, he has to pay for it. That's his din. Now, Nachamal, Ratzo Echad v'Igbiya Kesel Yeser al arba amis. One of them went ahead and built the wall in between them higher than arba amis. Now, in Bochavere, the other one, which didn't build this wall, Ubana Kesel Echad Goveya Keneged HaKesel Shebeneim, he built another wall on the other side of the chutzner, which was Keneged the Kesel Shebeneim. So then is Mechalken Mechayven say Litn Chelke Begoiva Shekeneged Kosle. So he has to pay for that height. Because originally he only paid till 4 amas. He didn't have to pay for the higher part of the wall, because that was something Reuven insisted, and Reuven paid for it. But now that he built a wall on the other side, which shows that he's going to benefit from that, the extra height of the wall in between the two chatzeres, so then he has to pay for that benefit that he's having. Ketzat. So Mechayven Eselit Mechelke begave Shekeneged Ketzat. Bona Echad Kesel Shebineim. One of them built he built extra height. The Higbiya Eser Amas, and he raised it to Eser Amas. So again, they together paid for until 4 amas. Now one of them went ahead and paid for the extra 6 amas, and he made it Eser Amas tall. Now the other one that didn't pay for it comes along. He builds another wall opposite this wall, and on the other side of the chutzner, a betzide on the side of the wall, which is an indication that he's going to use the height of this wall. Lasis lebais, he wants to build a house. So now he already has one wall, so now all he has to do is build the other 3 walls. But he already started building a wall. He built a wall kenegde, or built a wall betzide, which basically means he's going to use that wall, which is in between the 2 chatzeres, as the 4th wall of his house. And v'higbiya hakesel la'acher 6 amas. But this other wall that he built now, which indicates that he wants to use also this wall in between them, he built it 6 amas tall. So he doesn't need, he doesn't need all the 10 amas tall, but on the other end, he needs more than 4 amas. He wants to have a house that's going to be 6 amas tall. So then the din is mechayv v'neisei litn chelke b'shtei amas shemeisa v'larba amas. So now he has to pay, he has to be mishtatif in those extra 2 amas which were above the 4 amas. Because we could see from what he's doing by building this wall opposite the wall or next to the wall, that he wants to use this wall. So in other words, when a person shows, the chiddush over here is that he didn't really have to build the wall higher than 4 amas, and he didn't. The other person built the wall higher because he wanted the wall higher. Now he's showing that he's nichale with that wall that was built, and he's going to be nana from it. So once he shows that he's nichale with that wall that was built, so he has to pay and be mishtativ in that wall. And how much of the wall? The amount of the wall that he's nichale. Shari nira memaisav shureitzabem v'chein im chakak b'reish hakesel shebineim mokim laniach big hakeres. He didn't actually build another wall, but he went ahead and he made holes in the top of this wall that those Reuven and Shimon have a wall in between their chatzeres. Reuven went ahead and built the wall to be 10 amas tall, although the Reuven and Shimon built the wall till 4 amas. Now, then Reuven went ahead and extended the wall over till 10 amas, and now Shimon went ahead and he made holes on his side of the chutzner, and on the side of his chutzner, holes in the wall on top while they were building, in order, when he wants to put beams in it, he shouldn't have to make holes, he shouldn't have to create new holes. There would be the holes already ready for those beams that are going to go into the walls. That's Nachmal. He went ahead and made into the wall that was in between them. He built, he made holes in order for it to be able to put in the beams. Or on top of this tall wall, he put this large beam. That the beam should be able to lean on it, and they don't want it to lean on the wall because it leans on the wall, so it's no good for the wall, it's no good for the beams, there's moisture, so therefore they'd rather have a beam on top of that wall, and Memela put the beams on top. So the fact that this person that wasn't involved in building the wall went ahead and took this beam and put it on top of the wall in order for him to be able to later on put beams on top of it. So again, so it's an indication that he's going to want to use this wall. Is then he has to pay for all 6 amas. In order to be mishtativ in the 6 amas. Even though he didn't build the wall. So the chiddush over here is that even though Lepel, he wasn't yet nana from the wall, but Lepel, since he's showing that he's going to want to use the wall, he's happy that the wall was built because he has an intention of using this wall, so Memela, so already he has to pay for the height, either for the, if the wall that he built, if the way he showed the intention is by building another wall, so we take a look at the height of that wall, and that's how he pays the extra. And if the fact that he's interested in using this wall is shown by the fact that he makes holes on the top of the wall, or he puts a beam across the top of the wall, so then he has to pay for the entire extra height. Because Lepel, he's showing that he's going to use, and he has an intention of using the entire extra height. Halacha beis. Now, echad min hashutfim shebana hakoisel shemavdul b'neo v'in chavere ad arbamas. In other words, it wasn't a joint effort. One of them went ahead and he initiated, and he was the person that went and built this wall. And now v'tove chavere litn chelke beitzah. Now he's asking the other person, listen, I built this wall. We were really both mechuyev to build the wall. This is the bill, and therefore I want you to pay me for that wall. V'omar, and now itain is nasati chelke. You're right. You Taka built it, you were involved in building it, but I paid for it. I paid you already what I owed you for this wall. I paid you my ishtatvus. So hareze becheska shenosan. So we believe him that he gave, and v'nish behesa shenosan v'niftar. And Memela, he just swears a shuas hesed because that person is a tiveya. He's tining that he owes him money, and he's tining he doesn't owe money, and we accept what he's saying that he doesn't owe money, and therefore v'niftar. Achi yavi haraya tiveya shalei nosan, unless the one that's money will bring a raya that he didn't give it. And since the pashtus is that they both have to build a wall, and he's tiny that he paid his ishtatvus, so therefore, even though the teveya maybe was involved in actually the building it, maybe the actual building it, the teveya was involved, but since the nitva is tiny that he also paid his ishtatvus, and the pastor says he was supposed to pay his ishtatvus. And the pastor says, why should the tiveya go ahead and build it without asking the money from the other person and maybe getting from him the money? So therefore, we nemon that he taka paid. That's talking about, if we're talking about that he's mourning for the ishtatvus in the original dollar amas, which they were both obligated. So over here, what happened was the second story. The story was they built 4 amos, and then, as we said, Reuven went ahead and built a higher. He built, besides the 4 amos that they built together, he went ahead and built a higher wall. He built it to 10 amos. And now Shimon went ahead and did one of those things that we learned in Halacha Aleph. And as a result of that, now Shimon is really mechuyev to be mishtatev with Reuven. And now Reuven is coming to Shimon, he's saying, no, you have to pay me my ishtatvus. And on that, Shimon is saying, I already paid my ishtatvus. I already paid my ishtatvus in those extra amas that you built because I showed that I'm interested in that building. And V'oman, he says, because he's tining, either he built another wall next to it, a kenegdi, or across it. And V'oman, and he says, Nosati, I paid that extra money already because I knew that that's the din. So here's Eini Naman. So here, Shimon wouldn't be believed to say that he paid Reuven for that extra wall that Reuven built, and he paid him for it. Reuven is the nishba ben kitzes chayfetz that Shimon never paid. In other words, the person that built it swears ben kitzes chayfetz that he was never reimbursed by the other person. V'neitel mimenu ki didn't call nishba v'neitel. Why? Until this person will bring a raya, and the pashtus is because mehechatesa, that person, the pashtus didn't know that he's taking mechuyev to give it. In other words, when he gave the original dollar amas, everyone knows that they have to build a wall together, and obviously if the wall fell down, so they have to rebuild it together. So it's pashut, and therefore it's pashut that he paid him for it. Masha'inkan over here, Reuven built the wall, so it was pashut that Shimon didn't have to be mishtatev. Because Reuven had to be mishtat. Reuven decided he wants to build a wall. Now Shimon went ahead and used the opportunity. Since Reuven built a wall, so Mela Reuven is going to use Shimon is going to use the opportunity and also be nana from Reuven's wall. So not everybody would know such a din that because Shimon showed that he's nana from the fact that Reuven built a wall, so therefore Shimon becomes obligated to pay. That's not something which is such a pashta din. And therefore we don't believe him that he actually paid. But pashtus advarim, he wouldn't have paid until he came to Bezdin, and Bezdin would have passed him, yeah, you have to pay. Only then would have Shimon paid. And the fact that Shimon is tiny that he paid without a Bezdin, in Memela we don't believe him, and therefore Reuven is a nishba v'neitel. Halacha gimel. Mi shahoyo lechurva ben churva's chaver. Churva over here doesn't mean a churva of a house. A churva, it means a chotzer. Because you have a chotzer, which is a dilapidated chotzer. It's a chotzer which is not being used. In other words, it's not that there's houses in there and it's being used, the chotzer. The chotzer is right now b'pchinas churva. And now the v'amad chaveri, v'godar ruch rishena. Now you have a person. Let's say you have a person that has a chotzer. He has a chotzer. One person has a chotzer. Let's say Reuven has a chotzer, and Shimon has a chotzer to the mizrach of Reuven's chotzer. He has it to the ma'irav of Reuven's chotzer. He has it also to the darim of Reuven's chotzer, and could be he also has it to the tzofim. He has on all sides. He has a chotzer which surrounds this chotzer. So Memela, so he's sharing, so to speak, from all sides. He has a chotzer around Reuven's chotzer. Now, Misha Hayul Churva ben Churva's Chaveri, the other person had Churvas, and he also had a Churva. And V'Amad Chaveri, this person that had Chatzeris all around, he went ahead V'Gada Ruach Rishena. He built a wall in between his Chatzer and the neighboring Chatzer, which was Shimon, and then Ushniya. Then he also built another wall in between his Chatzer and again the other side of Shimon's Chatzer. Ushlishes, and then build a third wall. Achnetzas churvezu, the churve that belongs to Shimon, is mishalish ruchaseh gedura, is gader from all three sides. So he built 3 walls around his neighboring's chatzar. Is ein mechayv neisel litn lahitza klum. So sof kol sof, he still doesn't have to pay for anything because that person can tell, I'm not a nana, sharei lehoyelo, you didn't do anything for me. Varei churvasi psuchel shusarab. So we'll say Lamashal in the case where the chutzner, one chutzner is like next to the Rishus Harabim, and then there's 3 chatzeros around this chutzner from all 3 sides that's owned by one person, and that person built a wall around him from one side and the other side, all 3 sides. But lepel, the chutzner is still psuchah Rishus Harabim. So therefore I didn't really gain anything. So in other words, you aren't mahanim me anything, because lepel, my churv is still psuch l'shus harabim. Lefichach im goder leiruach revius. If the case would be that he wasn't bordering on the shus harabim, he actually was bordering on all 4 sides, or he went ahead without asking and he built this 4th wall also to the Rishus Harabim because he wanted to be reimbursed for the other 3 walls. Is that shenimtza? So now churvasi mukefes goder. So now his churva is mukefes goder from all sides. So now is megalgan lovasakel. So now you mechayev this person that's now mukef or vegeder for everything. V'neisen chatzi ha'itzo shohoitzi zeh ba'ar beruchis ad arbams. So he has to now pay half of the hitzois that the other person was mitzi. Now this is the din. This is a din of hayeded l'soich sodeh chaveri shalei bershus. He didn't ask him to do it, but on the other hand, it's a sodeh ha'asuya lita. It's something which is normal to be done. In other words, something which most probably the pashtus is that person wants it to be done. Now, if that person comes along and says, "Listen, I'm not interested in this whole story. Go take away a wall," so then the pashtus, he could tell him to take away the wall. Because he doesn't have to pay for a wall. He can say, "I'm not interested in the wall." Masha'inkin, if he is interested in the wall, so now he has to pay for it, and he has to pay half of it. He has to pay for it as if he would have hired him. In other words, as if they would have mishtatev l'chatchila. Because we're dealing with something which is hasuya lita. In other words, a churva is hasuya to go ahead and to be and to build a fence around it and to eventually build it up. Is memela. So if lepel, this person nachamos, if this person built from 3 walls, and lepel at this point in time, the walls aren't doing anything for him because the churv is still pasuch l'shus harabim. So then the person that built it can't want anything. Masha'inkin, if he built 4 walls around him, so let's say he owned 4 sides around him, or even bepashtus, if he owned only 3 sides around him, and then he went ahead and he built this fence in order to be able to collect for the other 3 fences that he built originally. So now he has to give megalgno of sakel, and he gives chatzi ha'itzo she'etzi zeh ba'ar beruchis ad arbamis. He has to give for the side of arbamis, which is the necessity to build between a chotzer and a chotzer. Aber bulvad, this is on the condition, this is a chiddush of the Rambam, that she'yim became a kesel shel shneim. In other words, if he built a wall on his own property, and lepel, since the wall was built on his own property, so therefore really belongs to the person that built the wall. And the person that's being surrounded by this wall can't really use the wall. So even though he's being nana from the wall by the fact that he's enclosed by the wall is doing something for him, it's enclosing him. But the pale, he's not going to be able to be nana for the wall, so then he doesn't have to actually pay, like the Rambam is going to say the next halacha, for the wall mamish. He just pays a certain amount because he's being nana from the wall. So this din, that he has to mamish be mishtatif and pay half of the source of the wall, is only if that wall that the other person built around him was built half on his property and half on his property, and therefore he's like owns half of this wall. So he gave him half of this wall, and it's a wall that he needs and he wants. So therefore he has to pay for it. That's what he's saying. If the wall wasn't built on the person's property, the person that was being nana, but it was actually built on the property of the person that built it, is Yiroi, says the Rambam, then he only has to pay a minimal amount, as the Adayon will see. So because since he can't use the ksolim, so therefore he only has to pay a minimal amount. Now this then was talking about, again, that the person, the makiv, the person built the wall, either if he built 3 walls, so then he don't have to pay for it, but if he built 4 walls, then you do have to pay for it. Only on the condition, as the Rambam is saying, that those walls are built also partially on the area that belongs to the nikiv. Now, so in other words, he was encircled by 3 sides, and then he went ahead himself and he built that 4th wall. And now that he built the 4th wall, so those 3 walls are doing well for him because they're enclosing his area. Who shegader ruach revius is the charigila daitis who's megala das that he's happy about the three walls that were built. And again, even in this din, when he himself built the wall, so the Rambam again adds, just like he added before him, if the walls belong to both of them, and those the wall was built on that person's property, v'chein kol ki etz baza. Halacha hey, v'chein shnei batim ze b'tzad ze. You have two houses next to each other. Ve'hoyu agageyim asuyim l'dira, and they're now the gag, the Amalek gag is there wasn't a regular thing to live in the gag, but over here you had a mitzvah of a gag, which the gag was a flat roof, and it was made. People lived on the gag, and those people did things. They didn't actually live on the gag, but just like they lived in the chotzer, they lived in the gag. And they did things in the gag which requires privacy. Now, so you have two houses. Now, v'chein is going on the general din that we learned before, that by a chotzer, you have a din that the chotzer, each Baal HaChotzer can demand from the other Baal HaChotzer that I want to build a wall because I want to ensure my privacy. And if you're going to be able to look at what I'm doing in my chotzer, that's being mazik mi beria. So therefore, I want a wall, and that wall should be able to prevent you being able to see into my chotzer. So in the same thing, when you have houses, that you have roofs, and those roofs are asuyin l'dira, as we'll soon see, that you have regular roofs are not asuyin l'dira. And therefore you can't demand a proper wall between the two houses. Masha'in kein, if you have houses that shnei batim ze b'tzad ze and v'hoyo gageim, and the roofs were asuyin l'dira, is afilu hoya b'shnei tzidor Rishus Harabim, even if they were on two sides of the Rishus Harabim, and there was the Rishus Harabim in between those two gages. So male, when one would look into the other, he would look across the Rishus Harabim. So the din is ze eisa maike lechatzi gage shidorbe, v'ze eisa maike lechatzi gage. So then they don't have to build. They don't each one have to build a fence, because as long as one of them will have a fence, so obviously they'll prevent the real. One of them has a fence, so male, both of them won't be able to look at each other. Now, but l'peil, which one should build a fence? So the din is each one builds a half a fence. Each one only has to build a half a fence. But the mice is, if you'll build a half a fence, so then if you're going to stand at one corner of the, and you'll be able to look across, and you'll still be able to see part of the gag. So therefore you have to build a little bit more than a half a fence to be able to prevent, even if that person will be able to stand on the other side where there's no fence, he shouldn't be able to look into your gag, because your gag extends more than half, it extends a little further. It doesn't have to go cover the whole gag, because Lepel, even if it's only partially, he also won't be able to look, because he has partially and you have partially, so you're not going to be able to look at him, even if you're on one end of the gag, and he won't be able to look at you. So therefore, that's the din, that each one builds a half plus a little bit. Yeah, they were on two sides of the Shusharab. So the din is this person makes a maika for half of the roof that he's living in, and and also it has to be knows each half should be on the other side. He should put it on one half, and the other one should put it on the other half. And and it should be more than a half. It should be more than a half. An exact half, so he'll be able to look across, diagonally across. Mashenkin should be more than a half. L'churi, you're asking a kasha. L'churi, you're saying, I'm going to be able to look at you. L'churi, anyways, people will be able to look at you. In other words, you need you're saying you need a maika because I'm going to be. There's Reuven on one side of the street, Shimon on the other side of the street. So Reuven is telling Shimon, I insist that you build a maika. Why? Because I don't want you to be able to look at me. I don't want to look at. I shouldn't look at you, but I don't want you to look at me. So l'chure Shimon goes back the other one. The nitva that's being demanded to build a roof says to the person, listen. The reason you need a maika anyways, because you need a maika to prevent the Bnei Rishus Harabim from looking in. So Memela, since you need a maika anyway, so I'm not going to really add anything. I don't really care if people look into me or not. As far as I'm concerned, I don't need a wall. I don't need a wall anything. Elamai, you're tining that I have to build a wall in order not to be able to look at you. But anyways, you need a maika in order to prevent the Bnei Rishus Harabim from looking at you. So you need a maika anyways, even if I don't make a maika. Even if I wouldn't be here, and even if I'll make a maika, you need a maika. So l'chura, how are you demanding that I make a maika? So on that, the Ram is explaining that there's a difference of how the Bnei Rishus Harabim look at me and how you look at me. Whereas the Bnei Rishus Harabim, since they're on the bottom, So therefore, they can't really see me when I'm sitting down, and they also can't see me at night. It's dark. Masha'en kein, you're able to see me in all situations and also at night. So therefore, your hezekriya is something that's disturbing more than the Bnei Rishus Harabim, and therefore I'm demanding for you to do something in order to prevent you from being able to see me. That's what he's saying. They can only see me by day. And also, and I have to be standing. You can see me even when I'm sitting and even at night. And therefore, I insist that you build a mica. There's a reason why I can insist that you build a mica is if I would have to need a mica anyways for the Bnei Rishus Harabim, so I can't insist that you build a mica because I need one for the Bnei Rishus Harabim anyway. So why do I need you to make one? Masha'en kein, since for the Bnei Rishus Harabim I can give us a chayitza because I'll lapel when I'm sitting and when it's night there's no problem. But for you, I want them I insist that you build a mica in order you shouldn't be able to be mazik me by day, by night, and also when I'm sitting. Halacha Vov, Gag hasomuch l'chatzar chaveri. A person has a gag, and the other person has a chotzer, and that chotzer is vice higher, so therefore the chotzer and the gag are pretty much on the same level. Now, a chotzer, a person does things on a regular basis, and therefore when a person stands in the gag and is able to see what the other person is doing in the chotzer, that's hezekriya. Masha'enkin, the chotzer, legabi the gag, is not really hezekriya, because l'chura, stam gag is not really done things that are of privacy, and therefore the Bala Chotzer is not as obligated towards the Bala Gag as the Bala Gag is obligated towards the Bala Chotzer. So therefore, if you have a Gag asomich el chatzar chaveri, is oisole maika goveya arbamas. So the Bala Gag has an obligation to build a maika which is goveya arbamas in order for him not to be able to see in the Chotzer. Masha'enkin, the Bala Chotzer doesn't have this obligation because Lepel, once the Balagag builds the Micah, obviously the Balachotzer can look into the Balagag. And since the Chotzer is more of a nizik than the Balagag, because the Balagag is not Kviyat Mishtei, so therefore there becomes an obligation of the Balagag to make a Dalaramis in order not to be able to see the Balachotzer, and the Balachotzer is Potter. That's talking about when there's a Gag Somuch L'Chotzer, so then Oisele Micah Geveya Arba Amis, and that's something which is the obligation of the Balagag. Aval bin gag legag mish'ar agagim. If you have two roofs next to each other, and we're talking about roofs which are einer asuya ledira, so then einer zokel arbamas. You don't need a wall of arbamas to prevent people from being able to look at each other. She'ein b'nei adam dorim begagas. Before we were talking about a special situation which is a gaga asuya ledira, and over there he insisted that they should build a mica, at least a half a mica on each side in order for them to see each other. Mashengan over here, we're talking about a regular gag. A regular gag is ein asui l'dira. Shein b'nei adam dorim begagas. Lefichach ein begagas hezekriya. Aval. So even though there's no hezekriya, avol tzorach lasis mechitza mishnei agagim, you still have to have some type of a division between these two roofs, which is govei asorat tfachim, which are 10 tfachim tall. Kedein sheyitvis esek kiganev im nichnas l'shusei. In other words, if the person will walk into his rishus, it should be like, what are you doing here? In other words, there was a wall in between. So if there was no wall in between, so he says, I was walking and I didn't pay attention, and I walked into your gag. Masha'enkin, if there's a mechitza gevei asarat tvachim, so obviously you're not going to unintentionally walk into his rishus. So, and if you are in his rishus, it means, well, what are you doing here? So he's nitvis olav kiganov. So therefore, each one could insist on the other that we want to have a mechitza which is gevei asarat tvachim, but you cannot insist to have a mechitza which is gevei arbams. Halacha zayin. Now, shtei chatzeres zula ma'ila mezu. You have two chatzeres, and both of them have a problem with hezekriya. And therefore, Sai the Elyon wants that the Tachten should look at him, and Sai the Tachten wants that the Elyon should look at him. So they both really need a mechitza gevei asarat tvachim, a gevei arbamas. But the question is azay. In order to build a mechitza, so the Tachten has to build a mechitza in order that it should be dalet amas above the Tachten. So let's assume that the difference between the Elyon and the Tachten is only 3 amas. There's only 3 amas. So Lepeil. So now the question is, where does the Elyon start building his wall? So l'churi, he needs arba amas from the floor, from the karka until arba amas. The Tachten needs arba amas from his karka until arba amas above him. That's what he needs. He needs such arba amas. Now, l'chura, the Elyon, there's a svara to say, the Elyon say to the Tachton, listen, you need arba amas from the bottom. You start building from the bottom. Now, once you'll come to the top, to the arba amas, to where I am, so then I'll build my arba amas. I don't want to have to build from the bottom. The bottom is, I don't want to have to lose any money because you're lower than me. No, I want to be able to start building from when we come to my level where I need the dollar amas. But the mice is you really can't build your dollar amas unless he builds the yesod, which is his from the bottom down. In other words, if you're going to be willing to start building from on your property completely, the entire wall is going to be on your property, so that would be a different story. Over here, you're not willing to build the entire wall on your property. You only want to build a half a wall on your property, and the other half a wall you want to use from the wall that he built. So the wall that he built is really going to be supporting that wall that you need. So therefore, you have to be mishtativ in the wall from the bottom. That's this din. You have to explain it a little bit better, but that's l'chura the pashtus of the din. Again, shtei chatzeres zu l'mayla mizu. You have two chatzeres, one higher than the other. Is l'yemer elyon. So the one that's on a higher level shouldn't say Hareini beini mikenegdi ve'ela. In other words, when the wall that's going to be kenegdi from where I start. That's where I'll build. I have to build 4 amas from where I am. And from there, I'll start building. And where will I build? I'll build half on my property and half on your property, together with you. Not really together with you, because Lepel, he doesn't have to build. The Kineg Day, he only has to build 4 amas higher than the Elyon, but that's only a chiv on the Elyon. It's not really a chiv on the Tachten. So he's saying, I'll build those Arba amas Kineg Dive'ela. So you say, no, you have to, since you're going to really use the wall that I'm building on the bottom in order to build your Elyon, and you're going to be building a wall that's half on your property and half on my property. So basically, you're going to be building a wall on your on my wall. So I want you to be mishtativ in that wall, which is going to support the wall which you need. That's this din. Liyemer shtei chatzeres zu l'mayla mizu. Liyemer Elyon hareini beini mikenegdi ve'ela. Ela beinim shneim l'mata and ve'ela. They have to start building from the bottom. And then Ubein Ha'elyon Levadi Mekenegdim Amayla. So the one on the bottom only has to build Dalet Amis in order for him to prevent him from being able to see into the Elyon, and the Elyon has to build Dalet Amis from the floor of his chutzner in order to prevent him from being able to see into the Tachten. That's talking about if the Bala chutzner has to prevent himself from being able to see into the chutzner of Chaveri. Whereas the chutzner Elyon has to worry about being mazik beria, the chutzner of the Tachten. Masha'inkein im hoise chatzeri l'mayla migaga shel Chaveri. In other words, there's a gag on the bottom, and he has his chutzner which is much higher. And Elyon zakuk the Tachten klali. Bechal doesn't have to worry about the Tachten. In other words, because lepel there's no hezekri on the Tachten. In other words, there's no nitfis. In other words, there's no concern of an Elyon being mazik the Tachten with Hezekriya, so he doesn't have to Bechal build anything. So it's only the Tachten is the one that has to go ahead and make sure not to be able to see the Elyon. So he needs to have a wall of 4 amas to prevent him from being able to see the Elyon. But on the other end, the Elyon doesn't have to worry about not being able to see the Tachten, because since the Tachten is a Gag, and in a Gag there's no Hezekriya, because people don't do things that are private. In a Gag, it's not a Mokim Hasi Ledira, so therefore over here the Elyon doesn't have to do anything. So Nachamol, so if you have 2 Chatzeres, Zula Maila Mizu, so the Chiddush is that the Elyon has to be mishtatif with the Tachten in building the wall that the Tachten is building, because that's the wall that the Elyon is going to build on top of that for the wall that he needs. Halacha Ches. Mi shoyikosle samuch l'ginas chaveri. He has a wall and it's next to someone else's gina, and v'nofel, and that wall fell. So the din is koifen eisel lefanas avonav. So since it was his wall, and his wall now like littered the gina, so he has his wall, his stones in that person's gina, so he has to get rid of it. Now Omerle, if the Baal HaKoisel tells the Baal HaGina, he giyucha. No, the wall fell, the stones fell, they're yours. They're yours. I'm forfeiting them. I'm mafker them. Because he has an obligation. This was his stones, and they fell into the gina. If the gina doesn't want it, so therefore he's obligated to go take it away from the gina. However, Vimratze ben Balagina, the Bala Koisel told the Balagina, listen, I'm a vater on these stones. It's yours. And the Balagina said, fine, Seder, Ba'amali Hain. So as I say, im pino oison, If the Balagina went ahead and took those stones, he went ahead and took those stones, which the Bala Koisel said you could take, is kana. So then the Balagina was kana. And he can't have charata. The Bala Koisel can't say, no, I changed my mind and I want those stones back. I will pay you for whatever it costs you in order to take those stones, but I want those stones back. No, in Shemali. Because Lepel, since he took those stones, he was already kana. Aval imle pina, but if he never took the stones. He just told him, "I'll give you the stones." And the Balagina said, "All right, I'm asking." Is leikana shali amr le'elu l'tchese, because bepashtas he didn't really mean to give him away the stones. In other words, we don't nem on that there was really a smichas das that he wanted to be maknem the stones. We assume that he says, you keep the stones. Basically, he was trying to postpone taking the stones, but he didn't really mean to give him the stones. If lepel he went ahead and took the stones, so the stones are his. Masha'enkin, if he never really took the stones, so he should be koinet with kin lechotzer, things of that nature. So we say no, that since ein daite elulutchese, so therefore the Balagina is not koine the stones of this koisel. Halacha tes chamish gines hamesapkes mayim mimayin echad. You have 5 gines, 5 gardens that are receiving water from one spring. In other words, you have a hill and you have 5 gardens, one below each other. And you have this spring of water, which is supplying water to all 5 guineas. Now, v'niskalkel hamayon, and there's something happened which needs fixing with this spring. So as I say, the question is where the problem occurs. Now, if a problem occurs in the top, so then it's a problem for all of them, for all the guineas. In other words, there's a problem on the top, so obviously, so all of them won't receive water. So Memela, they all have to be mishtativ in that problem. If the problem is on the bottom, so then the problem is only for the lowest ginner. So in other words, everyone else has water, just that the lowest one doesn't have water. If the problem is, for example, by the 4th, so then the problem is for the 4th and the 5th. So the 5th always has a problem. In other words, the 5th always has a problem. The 1st only has a problem if the problem is by him. The 2nd only has a problem if the problem is by him. In other words, the problem occurs. In other words, the 5th, the lower ones have a problem also if the ones higher have a problem, but the ones higher don't have a problem if the ones lower have a problem. That's this din. Is chomish ginis hamsapkes mayim mayim echad, and v'niskalkel hamayon. So the din is kulan misakin solyena. If there's a problem on the top, so that's everyone's problem. In the Mtzaso, it comes out atachtena misakenesim kulam. If there's anything above the tachtena, there's a problem. So there's always a problem for the lower one. Obviously, if he has the problem, so then he has to fix his own problem. The one on top, he never has to fix with anybody else. He only has to fix if the problem is by him. But anything below him, there's nothing to worry about. So when there's a problem with a spring, so the one on the bottom always has to fix, regardless of where the problem is. And the one on top has to fix only if the problem is by him. And all the people that are higher always only have to fix if the problem is above them, but they don't have to fix if the problem is below them. That's the Pashto Zach. Now that's talking about when we're dealing with a spring, where the question is who the Elyoina only has to fix if the problem is by him. Mashenga the Tachtena has to fix always. Now v'chein chomish chatzeres sheshechem mayim lebib. Over here is fakert. Over here you have 5 chatzeres, 5 chatzeres, which are pouring water into a drain, into a waste pipe, into a sewer pipe, and there's one sewer pipe. And it became a problem with the sewer pipe. So here's punfakert kulon misaknes amatachtena. If there's a problem on the bottom, so that problem on the bottom causes a problem for everyone. Because if there's a problem with the sewage stuffed on the bottom, so obviously it's going to be a problem for the one on top as well. Over here, theElyena always has to fix with everyone. Because if there's any problem with him or anyone below him, that any problem in the sewage will be a problem for him. And also, he has to make a problem for himself. In other words, if there's a problem with his sewage, so then he has to fix it. However, Vatachtena over here, Punfakert, Tachtena doesn't have a problem. If theElyena has a problem, and so the Tachtena, he has a problem with his sewage, that is not going to make a problem with the Tachtena. The sewage pipe is going well for the Tachtena. It's just for theElyena. It's stuffed up over there. He doesn't have to fix with anyone that's above him, not with the one right above him. and not with anyone above him. So it comes out, those when we're dealing with a spring, so it's fakert. So the Elyena doesn't have to worry about the Tachten. The Tachten has to worry about the Elyon. When we're talking about a sewage, it's fakert. The Tachten doesn't have to worry about the Elyon, but over here the Elyon has to worry about the Tachten. Halacha Yud. Bnei Anor mashkin ala seder. The seder is if you have a river going down a river, and there's like fields next to the river, and they're all taking water from the river. So the field which is higher takes first, and the field that's lower, and the river is flowing, takes second, etc., etc. So if Marshall, there'll be a problem that let's say there's not enough water, so it's the higher fields have first rights than the lower field. That's mashkin ala seder. Now ratza echad memlisker. He wants to put a dam onto this river and block the water from the water going down in the river. And first he wants to completely irrigate his entire field before the water goes down further and starts helping the other fields. So the din is va'achar reitzel ashkes. The other one says, no, I don't want you to make a dam. I want to, you could take the water as much as you want. But to make a dam and to actually stop the flow of water, I don't want you to do that. So the din is kolam zgaber zacher. Over here, Lepel, he doesn't really have a right to make this dam. You can't say he has a right to make the dam. So if he makes the dam, so you can't call him to a dentator. He made it. Masha'inkin, if the other person was Mizgaber and he didn't let him make the dam, and he insisted, no, I want to take the water. I want to be able to take the water. I don't want you to make a dam to this water and Memela block the whole flowage of the water. So he's Zech. Over here there's a din of Kol the Alam Gover. Now that's talking about when the person wants to go ahead and stop this Nohar, and therefore extend it to this entire field, which is not really next to the Nor. That's like taking a lot of water and going over the entire field. However, Uber Hakarav Liama, if you have over here a channel of water, we're not talking about a river, we're talking just a channel of water, and there's a bear, he wants to fill his bear from this channel of water before this channel of water goes any further. So then, Mismali Rishon, over here, he could fill it first, Bipnei Darki Sholem, and over here, Vaistuis, he could also make a dam to this channel of water, and it'll stop the water from continuing further, because since the bear is brought down, that since the bear is right next to this channel of water, so therefore it's not such a big thing for him to stop the water and fill up his bear from this channel of water, and then take away the dam, and then the channel of water will continue and be mamale the other sadhus.